to end off December. We are excited to have a panel of national youth and college leaders from all over the nation. They've done important work this season, in and out of season. Some people don't deem some of the work we do important, but we feel all of it's important because we speak for those who are silenced. But we are excited tonight to hear from them. We hope that you engage with us. We hope that you welcome these young voices, and we are looking forward to hear from you. We have our own set of questions, and we're going to have our own forum, but there will be a Q&A at the end. So as you listen, as you engage, we ask you to think of those questions. You can put them in the chat on YouTube or Facebook, or you can email them to nanyouth at nationalactionnetwork.net. Again, that's nanyouth at nationalactionnetwork.net. And we are looking forward to hearing from you. Christian Matthew, our president. Oh, I'm Ashley Sharpton, for those who don't know me, the National Youth and College Director and the NAN Youth Huddle founder. Christian Matthew, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us that are on the Zoom, and then thank those that are going to be watching via Facebook Live and YouTube. For those that don't know who I am, I'm Christian Matthew. I serve as the National President of the Youth and College Division for the National Action Network. And it is always a good thing when we come together. We have not done one of these virtual huddles since convention, but 2025, you guys are going to see us every month. I will make sure of it. But this is ending 2024. We're going to end on a really good note. Tonight, we are talking about several different things, but it is really focusing. We just came out of a really hard election. And young people, I believe, are one particular group that was definitely impacted the most. And when Ashley came to me with the idea for this huddle, I said, yes, great, no problem, because I think that young people really did not have anywhere to talk about how they were feeling. A lot of young people really stayed quiet and stayed home during the election and after the election. And so today we're here voicing the concerns, the opinions, and where young people stand, but not just what the problem is, but finding solutions. As we're going into 2025, we want to make sure that we're keeping the voices of young people uplifted, especially because we don't know what the next 4 years is going to look like. We saw what 2016 and unto 2020 look like, but we don't know what 2024 into 2029 is going to look like. So we're just keeping that into mind and keeping that into focus on this panel. And so before we begin and get into all of that, I'm going to ask that our dear brother, the good Reverend Cameron Barnes of the Rainbow Push Coalition, would give us our open prayer.
Appreciate you, Brother Matthew. Let's look to the Lord. Our Father and our God, we thank you that we know you in times like these. More importantly, we're grateful that you know us. And so we ask that you would sit in on this conversation and allow us to be able to just talk about that which you have given us to talk about. Bless each and every voice that is represented here. Bless each and every organization that's represented here. We thank you for our leaders. We thank you for those that have come before us, paved the way for us. And we thank you for each and every one of us that are not ashamed or scared to take this torch and continue to forge a new way forward. And so we thank you. We ask for peace. We ask for unity. We ask for a sense of togetherness, even in our country right now and across the globe. We ask a special blessing over this very special season for whatever holiday that is being celebrated in many different households around this nation. We thank you. We love you and we lift you. And in the name of the one who created us all with love in mind, we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Cameron. Now we are going to have our Black National Anthem, which is going to be shown on the screen.
Thank you. So I'm sure just before Christian jumps back in, is it stop screen? Can you still see it? Okay. The reason why we chose that, I know some people are like, oh, well, why would you choose? That's the National Black Anthem. For those who do not know, the National Black Anthem is Lift Every Voice and Sing. The reason why we played that version is because, yes, we could have chosen gospel choir or all black choir, but it was good to see other races of children singing the National Black Anthem and knowing the words. And we encourage young people every Monday and everyone who watches the Huddle, we start off with the National Black Anthem, which is Lift Every Voice to Sing, and that's something that we do at Nana's. We honor traditions and we honor our culture, and we feel that everyone should know that song. So we encourage you to learn Lift Every Voice and Sing in the National Black Anthem. And also for those who will be celebrating Kwanzaa, that's something we also uplift, because that's later in the call. All right, just wanted to throw that in. Christian, back to
you. For that. It's the history. We do it literally every week. And that is always led in concert with Dan, who helps us with artivism here, and he's listening along with us tonight. Now we're going to get into our panel. But before we go into the questions, I'm going to ask that everybody will introduce themselves. So I'm going to start with who I see first. That's Cam. So Cam, you can go first and introduce yourself. Please stick to no more than 30 seconds. Everybody.
No more than 30 seconds, T minus 30 right now. I'm Cameron Barnes, the Associate Minister at the New Faith Missionary Baptist Church in Chicago. I serve as the National Youth Director of the Rainbow Push Coalition, along with Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., and currently also work as a Southside Community Coordinator for the Office of Faith-Based Initiatives in Chicago Public School System. And, of course, an honorary member of the National Action Network.
Amen. Well, thank you, Cam. Thank you, Reverend Cam, for that. Next to I see that is Sandra. Sandra.
Thank you, Christian, and good evening, everyone. My name is Sandra Dededosa. I am a current sophomore at Howard University. I am a sophomore political science major and musical theater minor from Harlem, New York, by way of Togo. And within NAN, I serve as one of the chapter leaders for the Howard University chapter of the National Action Network. I'm the co-founder along with Tabia Lee. We have been working on this for quite a while, since before this summer, and we are so excited to showcase what we have done this past semester.
Thank you. And just so you guys know, Howard just had their interest meeting and have over 20 students on campus interested in joining that chapter. So kudos to you all for that and getting that chapter going. Now I see Laurel, who's next on my screen. So you can go ahead and introduce yourself. And his mom, who is one of the chapter leaders there in Las Vegas, is also sitting next to him. So I want to say hi to Tatiana while she's standing there too.
Hello, everyone. My name is Laurel Weisinger. I am a 17-year-old entrepreneur running my food truck out here in Las Vegas, Nevada called Chili Barkers. I'm also one of the youth advocates for the Las Vegas division of NAM, running alongside my beautiful mother right here, Tatiana. Oh, sorry. Came out the camera a little bit.
Are you still in the camera frame? Hi guys, my name is Tatiana Beatty. I am a proud member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated.
All right.
So sweet, so sweet. I'm the NAN Youth President of the Las Vegas chapter. I am the momager for Chili Barker's food truck that is owned by my son. I am the assistant for my husband, Shots by Dre, and I am the community youth advocate in Las Vegas.
That's a lot of stuff. God bless you. Next on my screen is Bobby. Bobby, you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bobby Arthur McAlpine, and I am actually the current sitting student body president at The Ohio State University, the third largest university in this nation. I'm also a very proud member and brother of both Ashley and Tatiana of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, the Delta Omicron chapter. Yes, I see you, sisters. And also at The Ohio State University. I'm so happy to be here and can't wait to engage in this conversation.
Let's go, Frat.
Okay, we got a lot of frats in here. Yes. Cam, I think you should shout out yours while you have the chance.
I was gonna wait, but you can see it right there in the corner there. I'm a member of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, 1911, of course, November 1911, not the other part of 1911. Just wanted to put that out there.
All right, they're starting. Okay, I do not want to say your name incorrectly. So if you don't mind saying your name, Ashley told me how to say it, but I forgot already. How do you say it? Katora. Did I say it right?
I knew you was talking about me. When you said I was like, you talking about me. Katora, yes.
Okay, well, go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Katora Butler-Reed, the campaign and training manager for the Youth and College Division of the NAACP. I'm so happy to be here. I'm not repping any orgs, but I guess I'll lift up my HBCU to which I've graduated, the Unsinkable Albany State University. So I'm just going to throw those shout out to all the HBCUs. And thank you for having me. I'm excited for the conversation.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have Tabia. If you don't mind introducing yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tabia. I'm a undergraduate senior at Howard University, and I serve as the founding president for Howard's chapter. At my school, I was involved in the NAACP. I was appointed membership chair my freshman year, and then I was elected secretary my sophomore year. I held position in the membership portion for 2 years. I grew up in NAN, so I wanted to, branch out and promote, more change.
Thank you so much to all of our panelists for introducing yourselves. Okay, now without any more further delay, I'm going to get into the first question. And the first question I want to open with is reflecting on 2024. What was the most significant moment or movement that shaped your activism and organizing efforts for the year of 2024? And anybody can open that up. Don't all go at once.
Repeat it again. I'm sorry.
Reflecting on 2024. What was the most significant moment or movement that shaped your activism and organizing efforts for the year of 2024?
I would have to say, honestly, just fully emerging myself into the Las Vegas chapter of opening the youth department in Las Vegas. And I think the start for us would have been our first event that we held, which was last year as our youth Super Bowl party. And from there, I think it just ignited just something large and making awareness. And then from there, being involved with the community. And now I can say we significantly and strongly hold strong partnerships now with the Black Community Alliance, Police Department. We have Freedom House Sober Living, and all of the partnerships that has like led in from February to now. We have at least probably 6 strong partnerships just with the youth department, and in itself, in the general, adults has their partnerships. We personally have put it in the work in the community and everything we've done. We now are proud to say 2024 was big for us. This has been a start, but now we have our own about 5 or 6 partnerships for the youth department. And I do say it's patting everybody in our team on the back to say that led a great outbreak for us to become connected and more aware. People know who Nan is in the community.
Thank you. And I have to agree, the Las Vegas Youth and College chapter has been doing a lot of great stuff. And so we have to commend you. I commend you. I talk to Tatiana. She gets, I know I get on her nerves every week asking for what are they doing. But it's every week is something new. And so we just want to give you hand claps for all of the great things that you're doing.
Thank
Does
you.
anybody else have anything
If
they
you
want to
don't get
say?
on my nerves, it works. And if you don't hear from me, you'll get on social media. So
Yeah. Anybody else want to follow up on that?
You know, Christian, I think that of course one of the things that really shaped my piece of the movement, you know, we're on the battlefield all the time anyhow, and from January 1, we're hitting the ground running. But one thing that particularly sticks out to me as it pertains to the political movement, I know we're both, of course, nonpartisan organizations. We're not in favor of one party over the next. We're in favor of justice and that which is right. But I recall the Sunday that President Joe Biden dropped out of the presidential race in July. And I knew then that we were going into a very tumultuous rest of the year. And it did nothing more but ignite the flame that was already there, you know, the fuel that was already there. But I knew that we were going into uncharted territory. I knew that we were going into some shaky and rough waters. And that really ignited me to be able to do a little bit more, even on the voter registration, voter education. We were going to have to be very, very meticulous in the way that we presented the information to voters. And I know for some of us, the outcome of the election may not be what we wanted. For some other folks, it is what they wanted, though. And again, it is a staunch kind of caveat as to what we're supposed to be doing, even as we get into this last week of 2024 and forging into 2025. As you've mentioned already, Christian, we saw what 2016 and 2020 was like, but we don't know what 24 to 28 is going to be like. And so it was at that moment that I was coming out of church. It was a Sunday afternoon. Never will forget it, of course. And somebody texted me and said, "Man, what's going on?" And I looked, and they, you know, it had been looming that week. If you were following that, the news, it had been looming that he was going to possibly drop out of that race, and it happened on a Sunday afternoon. And I knew then that we were going to fight like we've never had to fight before. And I'm not ashamed to say that, yes, I am one of those who is not so happy with the outcome of the election. But though I'm not happy, it's not that I've lost all hope. It's not that I've lost all optimism or enthusiasm of that. It just means that we, of course, still have to fight to continue to be pursue what is just, what is right, and what is going to be progressive for our nation. I do believe that we can work across the aisles. We can have bipartisan progress. Now, if we're going to have that, is I think going to be what we're all going to see play out before us.
Thank you. My next question, I want to give it to Bobby and Katira because I know where you both stand. And so this question is, how do you see the role of youth activism evolving as we head into this new political era And then what unique strength do young leaders bring to the movement today?
Katir, do you want to go ahead?
Katora.
Katora,
Katora.
my apologies.
Katora.
My
Katora.
apologies.
Katora.
Yeah, so I think when we think about strengths, we have to think about people's energy, like their natural energy. And one of the things that you'll see a lot of young people saying is that phrase, standing on business. And I agree. I'm 10 toes down and standing on business for all of the work of Black people, the resistance of young Black organizers. So I think that there are a lot of young people that use that term near and dear to their hearts because it's a form of resistance. I think many of us are recognizing that, respectability politics are not the only way that we have to organize. There are opportunities for us to recreate and reconstruct ways of organizing and activating the masses. So, we have so much access to newer technologies, platforms, social media, etc. So I think that many times, it has proven to spike the interest of millions across the country. So I think that this is really appealing for young people. And I think that this is going to continue to, help us evolve and think of new ways to, get young people ignited, educate them, but also mobilize them in ways that, our past organizers and past movements haven't done before because they didn't have the same access that we have.
Yeah, and just to add on, it kind of takes me back to what Kamala Harris would always say with our generation. I feel like it really encapsulates us beautifully. She always said, like, we are so wonderfully impatient. And, I think because we are coming into this world where we are in the generation of technology, like, from even 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, folks that were born back then versus now, we have everything at our fingertips with these phones. We have access to so much information, so much research, and things like that. And just like Katuro was saying, we are able to work all these new technologies and things like that. We're ready to make change. We're here, and just like you said, we're ready to stand on business. Whether it is, we know history and things like that, but we're also ready to go into the future and to take things into our own hands. Take matters into our own hands. I'm really excited to see what our generation can do. I believe that, honestly, yes, this election was a setback. Even just if you look at the generations of leadership, to where we go from one 70 plus person to another 70 plus person. But the fact that we are going to be able to, like I said, take this country and take where we are into the future and take it into our own hands and chart a new way forward, it makes me so excited just seeing our generation, how we're going about things.
Great. Thank you both. I think both of you said some really great things to that. And I believe both of you are right. I think that people don't understand that this generation has been standing on business. And it started with the fire of 2020. And that fire, at one point, it looked like it had gone down. But the fire has been built back up in 2024. And my hope and my prayer is that that fire does not diminish because of what happened in 2024. Now, this is going to be a rapid fire question, so everybody has to answer, and each person gets 30 seconds. What are the most pressing issues, locally and nationally, that you feel need to be elevated in 2025, and how can young leaders push them forward? So you have 15 seconds to answer both parts. You have 15 seconds each part, so that's 30 seconds altogether. I don't know how you're going to do it, but you're going to try today. Whoever wants to go first, you can do that.
I say collaboration. We got to push that hard and stick together because we don't know what's about to happen. So we need to collaborate with as many people, black, white, blue, green, whatever, tall, short. Collaboration needs to be strong in all aspects of life.
That's good. Thank you. That was less than 30 seconds.
I agree with that. I was going to say, civic participation. Just speaking more to what you were saying about the fire in 2020, especially now in 2024, I feel like there's definitely certain times when our engagement tends to go down, especially after something big or something small. So I think we definitely need to encourage more civic participation throughout times that aren't just a big election or aren't just a big protest, so that we can continue to have this same momentum continuing throughout, the year, throughout whatever the election. So just continuing that civic participation and encouraging it.
Great.
I'll really quickly add on to that. I think that making sure that we pay attention to every single election, even if it is in the off years, every elections don't happen every 4 years. So just making sure that we pay attention to all the issues, because a lot of the times state houses, I'm in Ohio. The reason why our state house is so gerrymandered is because folks don't participate in the local elections and things like that. So just making sure that we participate in that.
Good.
Okay, I guess I'll jump in. So we actually just did our end of year roundtable, and so we were able to get some survey results from our members, and one of the top things was education. So when we think about what a possible attack on the Department of Education is going to look like for the new administration, that's something that we're thinking about, whether it's DEI, college affordability, et cetera. And then I'll also add that accountability is going to be one of the biggest things. Accountability for local elections, local officials, et cetera, 365 days out of the year.
Something that needs to be brought to the forefront is awareness on accessible like street scapes. There's lack of sidewalks in many different areas. Like I've noticed, like walking around where I live in Maryland and everything, and then at school, and then I mean family houses and everything. But like curb ramps and like accessible pedestrian signals, like that needs to be addressed. And some things like I think that I feel that that could be done is maybe an audit with like policymakers or like city council members.
I should have waited and went before Katora because I didn't think that someone was going to have mine. But education, I believe, is definitely going to be at the forefront in this next piece, and I say that in a two-part kind of sense. Of course, now working for the fourth largest public school system in America, I've seen now what the education in our public school systems is looking like. And many people know that they build prisons based on third and fourth grade test scores. And so if our education, even in the curriculum and academia based, is not looked at, we're going in a very detrimental way. But I also mean that in a way of education as being an informed voter, being an informed activist, being an informed and educated advocate. We've got to be able to have the information to be able to do it. And I'll leave you by saying the way Reverend Jackson would talk about it. He says it's information, education, negotiation, if need be, demonstration to get to reconciliation. And, Reverend Jackson makes everything rhyme. And so there's a way to marry all of that together. And I think that's what young people should be kind of getting toward, making sure that you are educated in everything that you do. Don't go out here ignorant.
That's good. And I'm going to ask a question that's not what we gave you guys earlier. And somebody had brought it up, and it was in regards to DEI. Now, for the last 50 weeks, I think we're on 50 or 51, NAND has been outside of 787 11th Avenue. That is the headquarters and the office of Bill Ackman. Bill Ackman was the cause of Claudine Gay, Dr. Claudine Gay, being removed from Harvard University. Then the same man that we were going against decided to run for the board of Harvard, but they said that it was too contentious for him to be there because he had us at his office every day. He also has been getting questions about his responsibility on the Federal Reserve's board. And there's huge momentum regarding DEI and the fight for that. And Reverend McHenry here at the House of Justice, he leads that fight every Thursday there. But I want to know, as young people, how do you see yourself in the fight for DEI? Because I feel like a lot of older, this is what I hear, even here at NAN, I hear, why are there no young people outside with us? And sometimes I don't know how to answer the question because I'm saying, yeah, we want young people, but I don't think young people really understand what DEI is to the effect of how it's going to affect us. Now, we may know it because we may have that education to know it, but some young people are not educated, and it's not their fault. The Bible says people perish because of a lack of knowledge. DEI will perish because of a lack of knowledge. It's been here for years. People are just now talking. They've always been talking about it, but because the specific people are talking about it and want to get away with it, where you have major corporations saying, let's get rid of DEI. And DEI is not a black problem. I said this when we first started. DEI is not just for black people. That's also a narrative that has to be spun correctly. People don't know that DEI deals with women. How many women can even be in the workplace? Women will probably be some of the most affected on both sides. That gave women the access to it. It gave Asian people the access to it. It gave Jamaicans and Haitians and everybody access to the workplace and education. So I want to know, where do you feel young people play in this fight for DEI? And Laurel, I want to start with you because I know you're a business owner and I don't see you ever wanting to go against DEI. You've already blown up in Las Vegas. So when you blow up nationally with your food truck and you got one in each state, I can see you hiring everybody from around the world. So I want to know where you see yourself in the fight for DEI and in the push to continue DEI in this world.
But first and foremost, I think we got to start with just enlightening the youth, especially me. I'm still learning, jumping into NAN and getting an understanding of DEI and all these different restrictions that it might be put on 2025. So making sure that the youth, like me, are knowledgeable of what we are fighting for, so we don't just go out here with some chickens with our heads off, just running around loose, and making sure that we know what it is we're fighting for, how to stand for it, and how I see myself is using my platform as an advocate to push this, telling the youth, hey, we need to fight for this. It's going to get taken away. It's not just subjected to one category. This can affect everybody from black, Africans, Americans, people who are black, blue, yellow. It doesn't matter. We got to be able to fight and make sure we know what we're fighting for.
Right? You hit it right there. Bobby, I know you said you want to jump in, so go right on ahead.
Yes, yes, yes. I'll just jump in with just a quick little story. When I first became president, and Ohio has unfortunately, or I won't say unfortunately, Ohio has been going. We're not as much of a swing state anymore. I'll say it like that. That's a fact. But the state house is really trying to come for DEI everywhere. Unfortunately, since Ohio State is the flagship university of the state, that we were a big target. They were really looking into passing this thing. It's Senate Bill 83. Very horrible. Just they wouldn't even allow professors to talk about certain controversial issues, and those include like climate change and DEI and things like that. It would defund pretty much all DEI offices, things like they're doing in Florida. When it first came to the Ohio State House, it was horrible. Students didn't know about it. It was crazy. You would read it and you didn't even think it was real, but it was. And so the thing that the student government did, we were able to mobilize over 500 students sending letters and going down to the state house to give testimony, like I said, written and in person. And we set records at the Ohio State House that day. And guess what? That bill still has not passed to this day. So I just feel like, just like what we were saying before, about what is said in the Bible, the people that do know, it is our job and it is on us to help educate and help give folks the avenue to do it, because young folks, we will do it. It's just we need to be given that avenue. We need to know when to do it, know how to do it, and know what to do.
Right there. Anybody else have anything to say on that?
I'd like to touch on this a little bit as well. Going back to what you said previously, Bobby, beforehand about, social media and how adaptable our generation is, I think we can definitely utilize, this digital space to create our own spaces, to create our own avenues to advocate. Social media is one of the largest growing platforms. We're in a new digital age, and we can definitely utilize, social media, Instagram, TikTok, those 1 minute 30-second, 15-second videos to just inform our community and educate and raise awareness about these issues because, like it was said previously many times, education is extremely important, and educating our community is the first step to change. So by using these digital platforms, Instagram, TikTok, and other digital methods, we can definitely use these to educate our community, to spread the word worldwide, to spread it as far as it needs to get so that we can start to make effective change.
Great. Okay,
I
go
will
ahead.
say, I will say. Oh, I'm sorry. Was somebody else talking?
No, go ahead.
I will say, I know when you're saying you guys went out to do the walks and stuff like that, I will be honest and really transparent. And a lot of people ask me all the time with how do we get young people to do stuff and come out and do a lot of events. I will say we're in 2024. So a lot of them in the younger generation, they're like, why do I need to march? Why do I need to get up early? Why do I need to do that's for old people? That's back in the day. And like she said, there's so much on social media. So I tell people sometimes we do have to, if we're trying to reach this generation, we have to kind of meet them where they're at to understand so that they can understand. And so we as adults have to not be so negated to the fact that what did work, yes, it worked. And it still, some of it does work, but we do have to educate and then figure out how, with on that level of 2024 and what our youth are capable of, they're awesome on social media. So let's make awareness in a proper direction so we don't, they may not get up at 8 o'clock in the morning, right? Because to be honest, half of us don't want to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning, but we do it. But if the kids don't understand it, they're like, I got to walk, be in the cold and say, what is that? What changes are going to make? They think their change is social media. So we will have to sit down and be more open to hearing what the youth want to see and change after we educate them on what DEI is. So now we can say, okay, the youth may not march, but they campaigning hard on social media and TikTok, and they're doing their job to make it aware to others, to where we can meet others. You know, they said we got to meet them where they're at. So, but that is my stance on it as well.
Yes, I just wanted to add really quickly, because you kind of already mentioned intersectionality in a sense. I'm a Black woman, so I'm a walking level of intersectionality, and a lot of people are as well. You know, you have people that are Black, you got Black women with disabilities, you got Black women who are immigrants with disability, etc. So there are so many levels of inclusion that need to be had. And when we think about things like AI, when we think about technology, when we think about schools, if we are not a part of those conversations, they will do their best to erase us. So we have to make sure that we're consistently fighting to not be erased from our history, our culture, or our existence.
Thank you to everybody that jumped in there. I want to bring this into a twofold question, and I'm going to keep this going. Everybody here at some point has gone to college, I think, for the most part, and if you haven't, that's fine. But as college students, I think that Black education becomes even more important. And going to a PWI, I have definitely noticed that it was very strange for me. This is my first time ever in my life having a white teacher teach me Black history. And it was so different, Dominique. I'm serious. It was so different because I was just waiting for this teacher to say the wrong thing. Because I said, God, if this man says the wrong thing, I don't know how I'm gonna react. So and he kept it straight because he saw me watching him. And I believe the Lord had his angels protecting me because he kept me from going. I would have to call Ashley and Dominique, get me out of the jail. I'm going to jail because this man said the wrong thing. But as black people going to school, and some of you go to HBCUs, and just all of that, how do you feel with as we're going into 2025? We hear this man saying he wants to get rid of the Department of Education, and he said any school that teaches Black education will be underfunded. Black schools are already underfunded. It doesn't matter. HBCUs deal with housing situations. They deal with situations that at my school, those issues get fixed right away. They have money that they find out of nowhere. But you can't do that at an HBCU. Their funding is literally to the number. And so I want to just ask that. How do you feel that continuing Black education? Governor Phil Murphy just wrote into law about not banning books, no matter what it was. He said there'd be no books banned here in this state, and that's a good thing. So I want you to just speak to that, about how we can continue education as well, because education is also a fight with DEI. If you like it or not, now it is. It shouldn't be. But that's going to be another fight that we're also having to fight on top of that. So I want you guys to go ahead, and Cameron, if you can answer that too, being somebody in the Department of Education that can handle that.
Um, I want to just start off by saying, you know, the state of Illinois was one of the first states to ban book banning. And I thank Governor J.B. Pritzker for doing that. I went down through 15 cities in Florida in, I think, 2022 during that time where they were, of course, banning books, and we gave away books in all of these different communities. We went to CUNY Homes in Houston, Texas, which was the where George Floyd grew up as a child in Houston, Texas. And people have always told us, this was through the Transformative Justice Coalition with Attorney Barbara Arnwine. People were telling us continuously, why are you all giving away books in black and brown communities? They don't really want to read. They're not going to do that, so on and so forth. But every single time that we went through these communities to give away books that had been banned, never were we able to take books back. There were people fighting over how many books that they can get. I would let people know it's not that people don't care, it's the fact that people don't know. I found that I always thought it was, well, people just don't care to vote. They don't care to know these issues. It's not that they don't care. It's just the fact that they don't know. Someone was talking about it earlier, the fact that we're in the digital age and how we can utilize TikTok, utilize Instagram to bring these issues to the forefront. I am dealing with, if you all are seeing anything, what's going on, our CEO just got fired. The CEO of the Chicago public school system was just fired by the board for not wanting to take out a high interest loan. $300 million that would cost $700 million to pay back when we're already in a multi-million dollar deficit. I'm seeing this as I go through these different elementary schools, public schools, high schools, that we are severely underfunded from the elementary level all the way through unto our graduate levels and into our, you know, different colleges and universities. Of course, I'm a product of Central State University, HBCU, right over there in Ohio. Yes, sir, Bobby. I'm your neighbor. And
I live in Cincinnati, so that's right down the street from me.
You're right up the street, exactly. And so we, I was there when I pledged Omega, and then of course being a part of Rainbow Push, trying to really make these issues palatable. I think the problem is quite often we talk about the higher up of the issue, and it doesn't become so palatable for the everyday American, the everyday young person. Tell me why this affects me personally. Unfortunately, as much as we're in a digital era, we're also in the "what have you done for me lately" era. If we in matching energy, I'm on the same energy. So if it ain't got nothing to do with me, then why am I really even involved in this? When we begin to make these different issues palatable and understand what's going on and begin to break it down to young people, I know for a fact, it's not that I believe, I know for a fact, you begin to have a lot more buy-in for young people who are concerned about their education. People are not just trying. We've got to combat the fact that, I don't know if it's a national thing, but even in Chicago at this point now, the grading scale has changed. All you have to do is show up in the public school system, and simply showing up, not doing work, not doing homework, but if you've got the perfect attendance, you can be passed throughout the grade levels. We're doing a disservice in the public school system, and for an administration to talk about the trying to get rid of the Department of Education, lest we forget the last time that he was in office, our Secretary of Education, Sister Betsy DeVos, who only had a degree in economics, nothing about education in the first place. This is no more than the extension of what happened 2016 to 2020. Now, instead of putting someone underqualified or non-qualified to run the department, now we want to get rid of it altogether. If we begin to make this palatable, I don't want to take up too much time. Y'all know, if y'all don't know, Christian knows, I'm a Baptist preacher. I'll keep talking.
Preaching God.
You got to cut me off. But when we make this palatable and when we begin to talk about what's going on, young people don't know that. Parents don't know that. A lot of parents are, the fact that the middle class is being squeezed, they don't even know what's going on in the public school system that they're sending their child to on a daily basis, because they don't see them until they pick them up from the after school program. So the parents are not picking them up from school. They're picking them up from the after school program, and so they're not really understanding, what did you do in class today? How are you passing? And my son is not at grade level. He cannot read. I'm gonna end with this. I did 4 commencement speeches for elementary schools in Chicago this past graduation season, and every single time it was the double standard of one of the students that was graduating would be reading my little bio, and I ain't nobody, but my little bio, and they were stumbling over some of the words. And I would sit back and feel bad because why am I then going to give a commencement speech to someone who is not reading at grade level, and we're passing them right now?
Now that one, that was really I think that's a really good point that you made. Why are we passing people that don't need to be passed? Uh, my mother made sure that I knew everything. Now let me tell you this. This is a funny story. My mother purposely told my teacher to give me extra work during the summer because I hated to read. I mean, when I say I hated to read, to this day, I have to, I used to do it as a kid. I used to read signs on purpose. I used to read signs. I can tell you how to get from New York City to North Carolina without needing a GPS because I remember signs and exits. But when it came down to the literacy test, I did not read. And my mother told that teacher, if Christian does not do better, hold him back. And I resented my mother for a long time for it. But now people don't even people. You know, people. Now let me say this, Cameron. People think that I'm bougie because of how I speak, or that I'm uppity because I'm supposed to be from the Bronx and I'm supposed to have a certain language. But they don't understand. My mother said, "You're not going to sound like everybody else. You have to sound like you know something." And that you have some sort of education. And she told that teacher, if Christian does not get to a level, I think you need to be, it's A through Z. I think I needed to be a level H or I or something like that. She said, if he keeps under that, hold him back. And I mean, I was so mad because she had me reading these big old textbooks and encyclopedias. But I can read your bio with no problem. At my big age, I pray I can. But go ahead. Who's next?
I have something to say. Yeah, like it's Russian. But that is the school board as well as the administration in those schools who are failing the children. It's about, I guess, the parents need to speak out, community members, about that, because there's turnaround specialists who turn around the schools surrounding like absenteeism or literacy rates. So it's the school board as well as the administration in the building who are failing the kids.
Good point. Go ahead. Who's next? Go ahead.
Add in. I think it's a couple of different things. When we think about education, we have to remember that education does not start at school, but it is refined at school. You know, like they're just exposed to so many more tools and ways of learning. But I think that the other part is thinking about education in a sense that it is a community responsibility. HBCUs were created as a safe space and a safe haven for Black people because we were not able to go to those other schools and they did not want us there, and we wanted to create a safe learning environment for us to learn. But it also could have been practical things. So that's why you have things like freedom schools that were also created for us to do things like, whether it be agriculture, whether it be things like civic engagement, etc. So there are so many different ways in which education can be protected, but we have to do just that. If we want to save our HBCUs, we have to show up. We have to show up at town hall meetings. We have to show up and HBCUs need funding, but we also have to be showing up when the money is being itemized. So when it's a fiscal year and legislative session, we need to be looking at these budgets. We need to be putting pressure on elected officials that a lot of them have went to the same HBCUs that we fighting for. So a lot of that funding, you know, the funding might look a little bit different, but if there is money and resources to go to it, and maybe it can just go to scholarships or college affordability or lowering some type of a scholarship rate or whatever it is, we really are going to have to get creative, but we have to show up in the rooms that it matters and put pressure on the people that can do that. And another thing is, and I just got to say it to all of the HBCU alum, we have to reinvest into our HBCUs. Too many times we're having conversations about PWIs, and a lot of the people that went to PWIs, they're always constant. They're donating buildings and all kind of stuff. And what are we doing to make sure that our HBCUs are still standing? So we have to put pressure on community. We have to reorganize and show up in other ways of education outside of even going to school. We have to be constantly educating people on so many different things, but also advocating when the money is available to us. And even if it's not available to us, we're going to make it available to us from the advocacy that we do.
Right, reinvestment is key. And Tatiana and Sandra, I see you guys are the last two, so you guys can go ahead.
Okay, I can go. Just regarding like your question about how eliminating the Department of Education would affect HBCUs, I wanted to touch a little bit on minority enrollment and how that would definitely decrease. Just we've seen a lot of minority enrollment decrease, especially after the affirmative action ruling. In regards to PWIs, we've seen the decrease in not just Black enrollment, Hispanic enrollment, just enrollment of different POCs in PWIs. And now that we're no longer being welcomed into these, we're no longer able to go to these PWIs. HBCUs are becoming our hub again, as was said before. But with the DOE potentially being defunded or being taken away, we are no longer able to have these safe spaces. We're going to see a lot less minority enrollment. We're going to see a lot less, financial aid grants, the Pell Grant and scholarships. And I know for many of us who have attended HBCUs, we all talk about, how the financial aid line can be super long, but this is a serious issue. We're not going to be seeing this financial aid anymore and our minority enrollment is going to be decreasing. So this is definitely a big issue that we need to tackle, just discussing in the future how we are going to be able to be enrolled in these schools and what the further process is for that.
I will say, just kind of the first part of your question about education, how we can do and with the Black History. One thing I will say, the reason why they're taking education, we already know once you take education, then they have the power to do whatever they do and can do to us. But what I will say is that if they do take it, the history and no need to and give to our generation that we know now, like with our NAN meetings that we have once a month with our youth. Every meeting we end with Black History, whether they're teaching it to them in schools or not. Like you said, you had a Caucasian teacher. You have a Caucasian teacher teaching you Black History. Well, within our youth, how do they know where they're going if they do not know where they come from? And I always started off with that for them because I'm teaching them in Black History about our civil rights leaders and everything. Sometimes I will reiterate a lot of the civil rights leaders just to see if they're paying attention. But we do it, like I said, I meet my youth where they're at. I do it in Black Family Feud. So we call Civil Rights Family Feud at the end of every meeting. We do Family Feud and we teach in Black History. It's about local Las Vegas Black History, and it's a lot of stuff that happened out here in Las Vegas. And then just teaching them about U.S. Black History, about Black History. So if they take it out of the schools, one thing I do know with our NAN division in Las Vegas, we teach at every meeting Black History. So if it stopped whenever they do in 2025, one thing I do know on our agenda, we will not end the meeting without doing our Black History.
Thank you to everybody that spoke to that question. I'm going to ask two more questions before we wrap up. My next question, I want to give it to three people. It's going to be Bobby, Cameron, and Katara. And my question to the three of you is speaking to the effect of Dr. Kate. Cameron, you have the opportunity to work directly with Reverend Jesse Jackson, who was there with Dr. Kate. And I have the opportunity to work alongside Rev and with everybody in this office that works in the King mission. Katara, you're in the NAACP, and Bobby, you're out in Ohio, which is a really strong place to be at. And so this question is Dr. King. He spoke multiple times about economic justice and economic prosperity. We know that that was one of the big pushes during the March on Washington, was for that economic prosperity of Black and Brown people. And so, having that, how can young people address economic issues? We spoke to the education and the DEI. Now, how can we transfer that education and also get into the economic focus? And then how can we direct that into direct legislative action that our advocacy will drive into a meaningful force? So that's two questions. Y'all have 5 seconds to think on it, but whoever got it, y'all go ahead. Anybody can go first.
Okay. I may let me try to chime in. One of my favorite quotes from Dr. King was as he was being interviewed, he ended it by saying, "It was a cruel thing to tell a bootless man to pull himself up by his own bootstraps." And quite often, then we found ourselves in communities where they want us to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps. But again, here we are, bootless. And so I think that then young people have to begin to go around and find out those bootless issues in our communities, because that then is what is going to help us to put boots on the ground, pun intended, by way of putting boots on the ground, going as Bobby has done. Bobby and the students of the Ohio State University, what they're doing is putting boots on the ground to then be able to get straps on those boots by saying, because we know about this issue, now we're able to then lobby around this issue again. It's not that they don't care, it's that they don't know. And when they found out you had more than 500 students that were writing letters and going down to the State House and putting boots on the ground to then be able to stand up and say, this is how we're going to address this issue. You're not going to pass that bill on our watch. And so in the economic piece of it, because that's what Dr. King was talking about when he made that quote, he was talking about the economic injustices in America, where they were telling us to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps, but giving white European settlers millions of acres of land along with money to start that land, capital to start that land. And then, you know, back in those times, even if you didn't have cash money, if you had land, that was a lucrative asset that you could use as capital. But yet and still, we were still waiting on our 40 acres and a mule. So I digress from that, but I think the young people have to begin to go into your community. We've got to be able to see, where is it where we are bootless, and it's in more cases than you think. In our education system, in our economic system, because our education is directly linked to our economics. We just talked about the reason why our education is sometimes so shaky is because we're underfunded. So it directly correlates to the economic of that state, of that bill, of that school board. As Katora even mentioned, we've got to be there when the budget is being released, when the budget is being talked about. We've got to go and find those different spaces where, no, you can't tell us to pull us up by our own bootstraps, because we don't have boots. But what we are going to do is put boots on the ground, and we are going to get our own straps. And even if we do have to pull ourselves up, what you're not going to do is make us pull ourselves up and we ain't even got boots on. No, we'll put our boots on and we'll get to the ground. We'll go against the grain. We'll be here. I'm so glad I see you all every time outside of Ackman's office. And I'm looking and I say, man, they ain't going to let up. Every single Thursday, they are there. Somebody is walking around with a picket sign. They're not going to let up. We have to find our bootless situations and put boots on the ground.
Bootless. Love that. Thank you. Christian ran to the bathroom, so I'm going to jump in for him. Bobby?
Yeah, so this reminds me of another quote by Dr. Martin Luther King. I was hoping you weren't going to say mine, Cameron, but you didn't, thankfully. But I use this a lot. But he said, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. He said, if you can't walk, then crawl. But then he said, whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. period, end of point. So the fact that we are young people, and like I said, going back to that, when it comes to, financial justice and justice in general, we have to know that if we just do one thing, if we go to one march, if we do, one thing, it's not going to look like it makes a world of difference. But the fact that we did it means that we are inching closer to our goals, inching closer to justice, and inching closer and closer to, making sure that we are a just society. One thing that I did, and the way that I was able to actually meet Ashley and everybody, my fraternity on campus, we brought in Reverend Al Sharpton, as well as Reverend Jesse Jackson, as well as Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, and some amazing folks. And we just went. They came to Ohio, not to tell people how to vote or who to vote for or anything like that, but just to express how important voting is. Having people there that literally are living history. So again, going back to young people, leaning on our elders, making sure that we learn from the folks like Reverend Sharpton, folks like Reverend Jesse Jackson, people like Joyce Beatty, and other folks that have walked miles and miles and miles just so they can, take the baton as far as they can. Because right now they're ready to give us the baton, but we got to learn from it before we take that baton, so we can run as good of a leg as we can, so then we can give it to that next generation. So just leaning on the elders and making sure that, if we're not flying, then we're running. If we're not running, then we're walking. If we're not walking, then we're crawling. But we're definitely moving forward.
That was great, Bobby and Cameron. I listened to both of you. And last but not least, go right on ahead.
Katora, yes.
Katora, yeah, go ahead.
All right. So first I want to say I'm glad to hear this conversation and this specific question, because I'm a money girl. So when I think of the economy, I think about the money and the resources. So the two-prong question, because we always need a two-prong solution. We can't be afraid to follow the money. I know I shared earlier about money, resources, fiscal budgets, etc. When we go into each year, we need to be looking at that from a state level, from a national level, federal level, local level, etc. Our economic focus has to shift to economic empowerment. We have to connect the dots to the fact that money is often associated with the resources that we're going to get, which is the difference between some schools having up-to-date books or some schools having better buses, etc. But it's also connecting the dots of the money to things like minimum wage or some of the programs that are offered, things like Head Start, etc. So when we might think about money, we might think about jobs. There are some people that offer platforms specifically for Black entrepreneurship. So even having conversations about those different things, but also other factors like redistricting, and that's an issue that people might have stopped talking about, but I'm gonna keep talking about it because there are so many different wins congressionally, and those resources are going to be more equitably distributed because of fighters making sure that there's going to be some representation. There's going to be some money that can go towards hospitals, schools, highways, etc. All of our livelihood is at the basis of economic empowerment and resources. Now, the way that we shift that towards legislative advocacy, like I said, of course, always going to these different sessions, et cetera, and following the money. But when we think about leaders like MLK or trusted advisors like Rustin, women like Ella Jo Baker, or even down to the Fannie Lou Hammers of the world, et cetera, we have to remember that each of them had their own specific role in the movement. And so understanding that my role is not the same as Cameron's role, is not the same as Bobby's role, etc. Everybody plays their own different role. So we're going to have some people that are going to be strictly doing the research, but then we also have people who are going to be doing the logistics of actually gathering people and mobilizing them to the state capitol to advocate. Some people who are going to be doing that legal work and protection that we need to really push those things forward, and some people that are going to be actually lobbying with our elected officials. So kind of thinking about it in those different ways of what is my role in this movement, what is my role, what can I bring to the table in economic empowerment, and maybe sometimes it's just storytelling, and that's just as important as the person who is researching and tracking the bill. So we have to think about it from so many kind of different ways of doing the research and understanding. We have to connect the dots first for people, but also once we connect the dots, make sure that we're moving them and mobilizing them to actually change with the research that they found and advocating so that we can secure the bag.
And there you go. That's how you close that part. And what she said is really important. I think that as we not just end this, but even end 2024, going into 2025, I think the theme of 2025 should be stay in your lane. And everybody is not called to be on the front lines stomping and fighting. You got some scary people. And if you put them on the front lines, we're gonna lose the battle. But they can be, in go do your legislative stuff and go do all of that and go do if you into finances, go finance. If you into legislation, go legislate. But if you're into getting muddy and dirty, go get on the front line and have a spare change of clothes to go with you. But not everybody's called to do that. And I think everybody just got to stick in the calling that they have. Am I right, Reverend? Can I get an amen from somebody? All right. Come on.
Amen. Bless you. I'm not the only preacher out here. I promise you.
Okay. Now, I'm going to go into our last question. And it is as we are preparing for our 2025 March. For those that don't know, NAN is having the 2025 MLK Day March. That is January 20th, 2025. Washington, D.C. will be starting at Metropolitan AME Church in D.C. It's all over social media on the website. Dominique is here. And she's listening and she's helping deal with the buses and getting folks buses and getting people out that need that assistance. But this question is for everybody, and I'm going to ask that you do a 30-second rapid fire. And really what this march is doing, and the reason why we're doing this march, and Reverend Sharpton says it every Saturday, it is not because we want to go and cause a disturbance. We all know what January 20th is. It is the King Day federal holiday, but it is also inaugural day. It is in the Constitution that the president has to be sworn in before 12 p.m. on January 20th, no matter what it is. It has to happen. So that also coincides with King Day. Now, NAN is going to continue our legacy of doing the King Day Awards in DC. And then we're also going to have our policy forum on the 18th, where we have all these big elected officials come and speak to what they're doing in the name of King. Now, some of them have gone a little left, but we're not going to get into that tonight. That might come a different day. But as we're preparing for the 2025 March, and then right behind that, we have NAN's convention. What do you feel, and how do you feel about the phrase, we won't go back? What does that mean to you personally, and how will that lead you into 2025 and beyond as we continue in the fight? And you know what? You can't answer that in 30 seconds. I'm going to give you 45 seconds. You got an extra 15 seconds of grace. Whoever wants to start can begin. What does we won't go back mean to you, and how are you going to take that into 2025 and beyond?
So, I'd like to start. When Kamala came to Howard University's campus and she spoke to us after the results of the election, she told our generation, she told us college students that we shouldn't be, discouraged by whatever the results were, by the results that came out. And there were a lot of us that came out and were very disappointed. She told us to keep moving forward. She told us to, keep on the momentum that we had during the election and keep it going after the election. And I think this is definitely what she was trying to encompass. We have made so much progress, not even during the election, not even during anything recent, but in civil rights and social justice and in inequality. We've made so much progress in so many different things in this nation, and we need to keep this momentum going. We need to keep it going, and that's what I had spoken about earlier. Outside of just election periods, outside of just marches like the fire 2020, like you spoke about, we need to keep that momentum going so that we can see actual change even in these down periods. So this is definitely what I feel like it means to me. Just keep on going even during the down periods. Like you said, Bobby, when you quoted Dr. King, keep on moving regardless of where you may be. Keep on moving, keep on crawling if you have to. If you have to trudge, just keep going and keep fighting for whatever it is that needs to be fought for.
All right, Sandra. Who's next? Anybody can go. Do y'all remember the question, or you want me to say the question again? Say the question again. What does "we won't go back" mean to you? And how are you taking that into 2025?
I'll go. So what it means to me, I was trying to get the unmute button. What it means to me is we won't go back is because, for one, like I always say, we're prevalently with our time that we have now, 2024. Things are so different from going back. So whatever we do and whatever we're doing, continue to do it so that we don't have to go back. Don't stop because we went hard for election, like she said, and because the outcome was not what we wanted it to be. But don't stop. As everybody said, we have different things. Know your role, know what you got to do, and just stick with it. And if you don't know how to do something, but you really think it can get done, find those people that can, so that way we can go for it and it can be done. Whatever happens 2025, I know where I stand. I know what I'm going to do. And I can't speak for everybody else, but I know everybody that's on my team, we are going to make it happen. So we ain't going back. We're going forward, and we'll get a team for those that can help to make sure we go forward.
There we go.
Can I go?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Christian, I'm very kind of a linguistic kind of dude. And so we won't go back. The word won't is a contraction. It is will not put together. It's a contraction. Will not is not, well, we maybe won't. Well, I'm thinking about not. Will not simply means come hell or high water. We will not go back. And so for me, what we won't go back simply means is, look, if I don't get the election results I want, if I ain't got the money that I want, if I ain't got the advocacy that I want, it does not matter. I'm going to do as Katora did, which I think was so perfectly said, because I've said this so many times. Like you said, you're going to stay. I'm not going back because I'm staying in my lane. Look, if I can't do finances, then I'm going to advance the civil rights piece. If I can't do civil rights, I'm going to advance the advocacy piece. Either way it go, by any means necessary, we won't go back means I'm going to build a coalition. Tatiana even touched on it in the fact of we're going to be able to build coalitions of everyone being able to play their part and playing their role. So for me, going into 2025, what we won't go back simply means is it does not matter what we see. If it gets dark, if the storm clouds are coming, if you can see the storm brewing, you don't get scared. You don't get discouraged and say, well, okay, I've gone as far as I can go. No, you can't go back. So what we won't go back simply means is soon as you take a step forward, you've left that space. There's no, by any means necessary, you can't go back to where you were. We won't go back. We will not. And so it's a matter of, I don't think about going back. I don't consider going back. I don't entertain the idea of going back. By any means necessary, I'm going to find a way to forge a new way forward. And I believe that one time that was a sort of unofficial slogan of Kamala Harris's campaign, to forge a new way forward. And that simply means if we are not going to go back, listen, I may not even see a way forward. Now I got to forge a new way. So if I can't go in Reverend Jackson's footsteps, I can't go in Dr. King's footsteps. If I can't go Sharpton's way, Reverend Sharpton's way, I'm going to forge a new way forward and say, well, I ain't going back, and I'm not going to even try.
Y'all let the preacher take all the time. Go ahead, Nanja. Go ahead. Who's next?
I just knew you was going to take a hit before the night was over.
Go ahead.
It's about protecting the rights of like all marginalized people, and knowing how to engage others, like how we were talking about earlier, speaking on like tech engagement. We have to grasp our audience, like how we did, like how we talked about before regarding like the election, everything.
Last two.
I'll jump in real quick and try to keep it to 45. Be brief. So when we say we won't go back, it means that we won't be backtracking. We won't be discrediting or allowing the work of our ancestors to be erased. We were passed this torch to the movement, to the work, to the organizers, to the power. So while we must acknowledge where we have been, it doesn't, the work doesn't stop there. The movement, the work, the energy, it doesn't stop. So when we say we won't go back, it means that we will we must resist. We must resist oppression. We have to resist white supremacy. We have to resist the emotion of fear. We won't go back, but we will fight. And when we fight, we win.
There we go. And Bobby, you go ahead and close us out. I don't know how you're going to follow up after all these folks, but try, sir.
I really don't know either, but I I think that, when we sit back and we step back and look at where we are as a nation, where we are as a country, and we look at where we have come from, and the fact that in just a few years, we as Black folks have come from literal not being counted as humans, as full humans, to the president of the United States, not being counted as full humans, to getting I believe it was Kamala got the third most amount of votes in the history of this nation.
Yeah.
So that right there should tell us that no matter what happens, in 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028, and beyond, we are going to keep moving forward. And Martin Luther King, he said that the arc of the moral universe, it always bends towards justice. But it's our job to bend that arc and to make sure that arc bends as far as it can. So at the end of the day, we're going to keep bending that arc no matter what.
Great. Thank you all for that. This was a great conversation. And before we close it out, we do have one question that I'm going to read to you all. Everybody doesn't have to answer unless they want to. But this came from Chaplain Jade. Now, we do have a crowd of people that are watching in the House of Justice. Y'all can't see them, but I can because they're behind me out there in the auditorium. But they're listening and they're waving. House of Justice, y'all can say hi to the people, even though we can't hear you, but y'all can wave to them. And there's people online too. But this came from Chaplain Jade. She said, "What did your peers say about voting in this past election?" And you know what? I'm going to answer that even though I'm not a panelist. I'm going to start with that. I told them when I came back for break that my campus, now I go to Utica University. It's a PWI in upstate New York. It's a nice little school. But the issue that I was having up there was that this is Trump territory. And when I say Trump territory, I mean very heavy. You can walk out and the people would be in Walmart with Make America Great hats on. Not only is this Trump territory, this is also the territory of Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, who Trump has just nominated as the UN ambassador. And I had the opportunity to meet her. She came to my campus and she didn't know who I was. She had walked over to me, and immediately when she came, I got an ick. And when you got the Holy Ghost, you have discernment. And I discerned this woman was evil. I said, "God, I don't know who she is." And they said, "Christian, that's the congresswoman." I said, "Absolutely not. I don't know who she is, but she don't represent me in Congress." And the people on campus were just praising this lady. They had a Donald Trump representative come to campus, yet there was no Kamala Harris supporters at all. And I said, aren't we supposed to be bipartisan on campus? This is the leadership of the campus. I'm not talking about students. It's different if it's students. I'm talking about leadership openly welcoming these people on campus, and they're saying evil things. And then election day, they had a watch party, and you had people waving Trump flags on campus, and you had people with all this stuff. So I got in my car, opened up the sunroof, and I was screaming Kamala Harris to deter these people. I said, somebody got to do something. I had a bullhorn and everything. But the problem that I had was that young people did not know anything about an absentee ballot. That was the first time that I ever heard that in my life. Normally, when you think about absentee ballots, you think about older people because they can't leave their homes or they're bedridden, but they still want to vote. Half of the young people in my school, they don't live up there. I don't live up there. So I can't go to a polling location in upstate New York and my vote be counted. So I had to order an absentee ballot. Now I didn't tell Ashley I did this, but I had did this. I organized with the BSU on my campus, and I organized with the lieutenant governor's office to get absentee ballots to Utica, and we had registered almost 1,500 people to get absentee ballots. Now, I don't know what they did with their votes. I couldn't tell them that. But it was still the fact that they didn't know what an absentee ballot is. They said, how am I going to vote? I'm not going home just to vote. I said, get an absentee ballot. And half of them did it on the last day, October 26th. I'll never forget it because I said, there's no way that this is possible. But how did they vote? I don't know how they voted, but I know that there is a lack of education when it comes to absentee ballots, and that is where I think a lot of people fail. And we don't want that to happen in the midterms. We need the midterms to be because we need things to get fixed in 2026. So we need to get people to vote, but young people have to know what absentee ballots is. And I think that that is everybody's responsibility that's on this call in their own way. I know Cam helps and does voter registration in his district, and I know you, Bobby, probably had some voter registration drives on campus. I know Sandra and Tabia were also helping with that on their campus at Howard and doing voter drive and even in the DMV area. So I think voter registration is very important and voter education are two key things. Sandra, go ahead. I see your hand up.
Yeah, so I wanted to touch on that on Howard's campus as well, especially regarding the absentee ballot thing. So at Howard, we have a lot of different students from a lot of different states, and one of the main issues on our campus as well. Just students wondering how they were going to vote from all the way in DC when some of them were coming from California, from Alaska, from these different states, and so. I currently serve as a staffer within the 64th administration of the Howard University Student Association. And within this administration, we were able to, mobilize students and educate them on the importance of just voting. Although we didn't necessarily say vote for this person, vote for that person, we just educated our student body on how to vote, what to do to vote. We were able to teach them about absentee ballots. We had different representatives go into the dorms on campus and sit there with tables and with envelopes and with stamps. So anyone who had gotten their absentee ballot right from the mailroom that was over there, they would come right to our table, get an envelope, get a stamp, so that once they filled out their absentee ballot, they could just get their envelope and their stamp and then send out their ballot. So we were able to do that every week leading up to the actual election date, and we mobilized so many people to go out and vote. And another good thing that we did is DC allows for on-site registration and voting as long as you reside in DC. So we were also able to educate people on that, people who weren't able to register for absentee ballots in time were able to go down to the church down the street, and just we had a line dedicated to Howard students as well to be able to go in, register to vote and vote. So we had a lot of mobilization, and this is sort of why I emphasize, educating our communities, because a lot of people aren't aware that you could register for voting in DC the day of, that you could register for your absentee ballot. So education is extremely imperative, regardless of what college you go to.
And then our last two, go ahead.
Yeah, so I want to add to the conversation about like what people were saying on the ground, specifically in areas like you mentioned, like there are some rural areas that people are just not paying attention to, or that just don't have access. And then you have a lot of people. I want us to talk about the students who have like a huge level of voter apathy. There are a lot of students who just kind of felt like they didn't want to vote for either one candidate, right? So it's like they had issues with Kamala Harris and Trump, or they might have said they wanted to vote for another party, etc. So it's like you have to think about those people who they don't even want to vote for either one of the options. So that was a real conversation that we had to have, and a lot of times the solution or the answer to that was, okay, what's on the ballot locally, because sometimes we didn't have enough time during. I don't know. I know usually we always have this much time for elections, but it just felt like we didn't have enough time during this election. So sometimes I just have to shorten the whole argument. Like, look, what you got on the ballot? Who is there? Do you have a mayor running for the ballot? Do you have a public service commission that's going to determine your utility bills? Or do you have something that is going to actually directly affect you that you really care about? So let's have those conversations. The other thing was barriers. So I live in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I work with a lot of the students here at Southern University. And what always happens, Grambling and Southern, they always got some huge game. It's either gonna be homecoming or a game with Jackson State or a game with their rival schools. You have all these different things. So a lot of times it's restructuring the strategy. So like just change it because we know them students, they going to homecoming. They're not coming to vote. So if election day is on homecoming, they're going to turn up. They're going to have a good time. They don't care. Not just the students though, because homecoming is really for the graduates in the city. So most of those people, they're not going either. So creating alternatives to really combat those barriers. So it looks like early voting strategies. It looks like party buses to the polls or whatever the case. And that's something that we also did in Georgia. Like let's make it cute. So some of the students at Spelman, they had like a brunch and ballots, and it looked kind of like Bridgerton looking, and it was very cute, very demure. And so that was something that will get people out. They're going over the ballots. They're helping them understand what is on the ballot, what do these people do, etc. So really meeting people halfway. Unfortunately, that's what we have to do with students, but a lot of times students just don't know. But I think a lot of times we don't give students enough credit. They know exactly what they're talking about. It's just they don't have the resources. They don't have the rides to be able to go to the polls. They don't have, the specifics. So maybe it's sometimes partnering with professors in the poli sci department. Maybe they can kind of help maybe they can do some extra credit if they go to some of these events that we're having at NAACP so that we can be educating people. So really creating a whole bunch of alternatives so that there is no option at all for them to say that they can't vote. We're fixing that. And then if it's a matter of resources, we're connecting them with organizations. You got the Black Voters Matter. I used to work for Black Voters Matter. And so one of the things that we would do is, of course, funding a lot of that work as well, funding some of these resources so that you can do transportation, you can do phone banking and canvassing, etc., for maybe a little stipend and a grant that's been given from BVM or other partners that have resources to do that. So really creating sensible solutions so that they have no choice but to go.
Yeah, I see we're coming up on 8 o'clock, so I'll be real quick. I just think it starts years beforehand. The fact that one thing that I've been able to do as president, I'm in my second term. We were able to go to the administration and really just talk to them about how can we get students out to vote. One big thing that we came with was give them the day off because sometimes teachers don't allow them to do it. For years and years, Ohio State said no, 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 this for whatever reason. But we came up with a new way. Our motto is education for citizenship. It's like, okay, so what is citizenship really? And that is voting, right? That's the bedrock of citizenship in this country. So we're like, okay, how can we make it easy for people to vote? Give them a day off. For the first time ever, it was a trial run. Ohio State was able to do that. And we saw it, that along with the student government, we sent, I believe, about 20,000 letters to various students and student groups across campus, living on campus to different dorms and things like that. Some of those I took my stacks myself and I delivered them to various dorms just to remind people election day is coming up and things like that. So I think just, coming up with creative solutions and even just getting back to the basics, reminding friends and family, reminding, people, hey, are you registered? Are you going to get registered? What is your plan to register? Do you know about, who you're voting for, what you're voting for, what issues are on the ballot, things like that. So at the end of the day, we gotta make sure that we are come into these problems with creative solutions, and sometimes creativity is in going back to the basics.
And thank you, Bobby, for that. Thank you all for joining. Give yourselves a round of applause. Everybody that's in the audience, thank you. Give them a round of applause too. All of these great leaders that have been here with us tonight from across the country. And we thank each of you for joining us. We're going to try to do these once a month. You will see different faces every month. You might see the same people, but it don't matter because it's going to be great conversation. Ashley, do you have any remark? Damo? Oh, Dominique is going to close us out. Where is Damo?
Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I have really enjoyed tonight's forum. Like, it's always a pleasure to be in the midst of just amazing young people who are really involved in the work, who are mindful of the journey, who understand that, as you know, Reverend Sharpton and many leaders say, you know, this is not a sprint, but it's a marathon. And we have the trajectory to move forward, to make progress, because we have all of you at the helm of leadership, pushing this forward to the next level. So thank y'all for joining us. And those of y'all who are out there watching us virtually, don't forget that we are still in the action. So we will be at the House of Justice on this Wednesday, Christmas Day, where we will be feeding the seniors and those in the community who will gather with us at the House of Justice. And we'll be giving away toys. So all the young people are welcome to also join us with your parents, and it's going to be a fun, festive time. Go to the website. I think that as many of our leaders tonight on this call have said, get into the action, get involved. Be about that. Be about the work. And as you can hear, there are many different ways. There are many different groups. There are many, things that you can do to get involved. So it doesn't have to be, the cookie cutter. This is what we do. We want you to be involved, and we want to continue to utilize our voices and uplift it in a powerful way. So I'm not going to belabor. I just want to say thank y'all so much for being on, for joining us, for hearing from these dynamic leaders. I'm so proud of everyone, and I look forward to continuing the work. I know we'll be in DC. It'll be cold on January 20th, but we'll be marching, with heat in our hearts, because we know that we got to keep the fire burning for justice and equality. So I look forward to seeing everyone on the front lines, and thank you, and keep up the great work. Happy holidays to everyone. Thank you to our visionary Ashley Sharpton for her work and everything that she's done to continue to move the mantle forward. To Christian Matthew and everyone who's joined us, thank y'all so much, and I truly do love you. Happy holidays.
Thank you, Damo. And so I'm going to close this in prayer. God, we thank you for this time and this opportunity that you have brought us here. Thank you for every young person that was on this call. God, we ask that you will cover each of them individually as well as collectively. Give them favor in every area of their life and continue to increase them beyond where they are and expand their territory and their borders. Thank you for everybody that watched us virtually, that everybody that watched us in the House of Justice. God, as they leave this place, but never from your presence, get them to their various destinations and find all things well. And we pray for your peace and your protection as we continue through these holidays. God, bless those that may be brokenhearted, those that may be lonely or alone. God, we ask that you will cover them and be their comforter, as only you are the one that can do that. And we thank you for all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.